Ba 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 da 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 da. Does that sound more cheerful? No? Oh well. It's all a bit But anyway, a bit of information has surfaced from USP. So it turns out the people who were attempting to, well, kill me, I assume, on the night that Sarah was born. Well, it turns out they're part of this same new radicalist group that our old friend Stacey Cameron was a part of. The group seems to be determined that I am one of the things that is preventing Earth from growing again, or some other bullshit that they've convinced themselves of. I mean, if they say blame me for the destruction of half the Earth and, say that I should be locked away in that, okay, fine, they can have their opinion on that, that's rightfully theirs, but the fact that they're saying that, I am preventing, how the hell am I preventing it? For one. And for another thing, I've been doing absolutely everything I possibly can be doing to try and get things back on track. I mean, I am investing a lot of money into charities to try and basically get the Earth rebuilt and put back together, at least in some shape or form. And I have been making it more inhabitable for people, so to be honest, I find it pretty insulting. But you know what, if that's what they want to believe, fine, let them. But it's when they start taking actions like they did on the night that Sarah was born, well, that's when I've got to step in and say, no. There is saying your opinion, which is one thing. I mean, that's freedom of speech, which I'm all for. But as soon as you start taking hostile action, that is another thing entirely. And that is something I simply won't stand for. So, to this radicalist group out there, if you are listening to this podcast, and you know what? They actually might be. Maybe you could gather research or intel on me. But if you are, despite my condition, I will still defend my family to my last breath. So if you try going after them to try and get to me, I will not hesitate to do what is necessary to stop you from doing that. Because despite me having a virus that is slowly killing me, and also me in general not wanting to hurt people, I am still part Scarborough, which means I have sharp teeth and claws, and I will not hesitate to use them if necessary. And for another... What? Dad, you better come quick. What is it? James? What's the matter? I think you better read this. Donfrey, James, and my little girl Sarah. I am sorry and feel terrible for this decision that I have made, though please understand. I have been feeling stressed out of my mind recently. I feel trapped without any means of escape until I met someone. Whenever you Donfrey hired carers to look after you and Sarah, it's when I met someone, and to me he was the escape that I needed. And so I am going off from this stressful prison. I know what I'm doing is despicable. I will send money your way in order to pay child support. Oh, she's fucking kidding me. She can keep the fucking child support. Because she's never gonna see Sarah again. Dad? What? Come here. Come here. It's gonna be alright. You hear me? We're gonna get through this. Where's your sister?
She was in a cot.
Right, come on. Come on, we'll have to go watch her. Oh, where'd you find the note?
It was left by the side of the cot.
So she just walked out. Right there! Well, she's not gonna see her, ever.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault, alright? No matter what you think, none of this is your fault. Alright? Hey, don't look so upset. You're the best son I could ever hope for. We may have had our ups and downs, but we're gonna get through this.
But what about you? And
I'll find the cure. I promise you, not just for me, but so that you and your sister can never get it. Okay, so come on. Hey, it's alright. It's alright, my little dumpling. Daddy's not gonna leave you. Isn't that right, little Sarah?
Yeah.
Just a big girl.
I promise. Should I go? Leave you alone for a bit?
Absolutely not. Right now I want you here where I can see you. Both of you.
Dad, what's gonna happen now?
Well, I'll have to get more carers in more often. And you'll unfortunately have to be a big brother. Even more so than you are already. But we'll figure something out. I promise. We'll work all this out. So, I've contacted my lawyer. Yeah, it's now official, Sally. You've lost custody over Sarah. I hope it was worth it for you. I hope you're really happy where you are. And guess what? Things have gotten worse. For the rest of you who are listening, let me explain. The other night I was woken by the sound of glass being broken. I quickly grabbed my gun, and without turning on any lights, I edged my way forward towards my bedroom door. I could only vaguely see the door, if it wasn't for the contrasting colours of the door being a dark mahogany colour and the walls being painted a clouded white. I then heard movement. It was pretty muffled, presumably it was coming from downstairs. Unfortunately, downstairs also was my USP emergency tracker, so that meant for the moment I couldn't get any outside help. I was hoping that it was just going to be, just ordinary burglars who maybe might not be very well equipped. Well, I was definitely right about one thing: these people were definitely not well equipped. As if they were, they would have cut through the glass rather than smashing it. I twisted the doorknob as slowly as I could, though I was unsure whether I should just pull the door open all at once or pull it open slowly, as I knew my door would creak at least a little bit. If I pulled it slowly, the creak wouldn't be as loud, though it would last for longer. If I pulled it open quickly, the creak would be louder, but it would be over in a second. I didn't want to lose the element of surprise I had, though I also didn't want to give whoever uninvited guest I had downstairs an advantage either. I had an idea though. By holding my hands out in front of me, I was able to make it to my drawers, and I pulled out a pair of socks. I then placed the socks against the hinges of the door. Then, clasping the knob again, I opened the door as quickly as I could, but also at the minimum required for me to comfortably get through the door. Pressing the socks against the hinges dampened the squeak. It was just a matter of whoever had broken in also had their ears pricked. Now that I was out, I made it to the balcony that overlooked the hallway and living room. I saw 2 men and 2 women. They weren't wearing masks, or wearing any gloves. In fact, they just seemed to be dressed in casual clothes. So either they weren't very effective burglars, or they were here for some other reason, and them leaving DNA evidence as well as not concealing their identities didn't seem to matter to them. However, none of that might have mattered, as I could barely make them out. The only light coming through was of the street lamp outside, shining through the window, which they had broke. I thought without torches they'll just be fumbling about and just be in the dark as much as I was. But as I managed to catch one of them in the light of the street lamp outside, I realised they were wearing goggles that looked like to have a battery on the back of the strap, and they seemed to almost have a slight ominous green glow to them. I then immediately realised they must all be wearing night vision goggles. So they were efficient and prepared enough to wear night vision goggles so that they won't need torches, so that they won't accidentally shine a light in our eyes when we were asleep. Though not enough to have the equipment to cut through glass, and rather smash through it. I then overheard one of them talking to the other. They said they couldn't hang about, as ER had given direct instructions. I later found out through USP's records, ER, or their full name, Earth Restoration. They are the group which sent Stacey Campbell after me, and also the 2 people in the car, with a third piloting a shuttle. The thing is though, most of the people who are part of this group hadn't really received any training whatsoever, because, well, it had been formed by some, once pretty average people, and some other pretty average people joined. I mean, them getting equipment was obviously possible, but the training that to properly utilise it, well, that was clearly something that just wasn't there. So that explained the smashing through the window. Maybe they had tried to cut through it and just messed it up. Or maybe just hadn't quite thought it through. Regardless, ER considered me a threat, and wanted to get me out of the way. I mean, it's not all bad, I guess, because they also consider Spax a threat, and Spix McKendry also a threat. But as well as the entirety of USP. They basically want to get rid of any alien influences on Earth and rebuild Earth in isolation, in an attempt to try and stop it ever being caught in intergalactic matters ever again. Yes, absolutely, because that's how it's gonna work, isn't it? And also, that's how we get progress, isn't it? Never mind that the Earth is already being rebuilt. Oh, no. To them, it's being poisoned and corrupted. I've never heard so much nonsense in my life. Anyway, back to me at the top of the landing. I then crouched down and backed away so they couldn't see me if they looked up, as I realised I wouldn't be hidden by the cover of darkness. I had no idea if they were armed or not. And even if they weren't, there was 4 of them and 1 of me. I set my gun to stun. After all, I didn't want to be killing people. I've been bladed as a murderer quite too often. Presumably they would probably stick together as a group. They hadn't moved yet, so I still had a chance. I could definitely take 1 of them out, and they would be unconscious for at least a couple of hours. But as soon as I did take 1 of them out, then surely the others would scatter. Sarah's cot had been moved back into my room, and by some miracle this hadn't woken her up. I could easily get back in there to defend her, if the rest of them attempted to come up the stairs. I took a look at my gun. It was low on power. I hadn't recharged it since I shot at that car. In Skazer mode it used less power, though I had no idea if I had enough shots to take them all out, so I would most likely have to defend them off the old-fashioned way. Protecting Sarah was easy. I was only a few feet away from my door. But James's room was right next to the stair landing, so if they wanted to, one of them could go in there and take him hostage. I decided not to take one of them out immediately and let them begin to search the house. Since I wasn't wearing any shoes, or clothes in general, I was in my underwear, as I'd just been woken up out of bed. Still though, it did give me an advantage, as the sound of me walking on carpet upstairs was far quieter than their heavy shoe footsteps downstairs. As I passed my room, I looked through the doorway and saw that Sarah was still asleep. Satisfied, I continued on to James's room. I checked to make sure that none of them were coming up the stairs, and listened to their footsteps. Thankfully, they seemed to make their way over to the kitchen area, and it sounded like maybe one or two of them were making it down to the basement. Perhaps they weren't just looking for me. They were possibly looking to see if I had anything on USB as well. Regardless, this gave me the time to slowly open James's door, in the same way that I'd opened my own, minus the socks this time, as the latches were on the other side. James was still asleep. I slowly crept over and put my hand on his mouth, tightly, before waking him up. As James woke, he was clearly trying to say something that was just being muffled out by my hand. I then put my free hand over my lips and whispered into his ear directly.
There are 4 people who have broken in. Get out of bed as slowly and as quietly as you can, as cannot make the bed creak. Then, follow me to my room. We'll get your sister, and then hopefully work out a plan from there.
James then nodded, and did exactly what he was told to. Unfortunately, as we were leaving his room, one of the 2 men was making it up the stairs. He immediately saw us and shouted for the others. I then grabbed both of the banisters in either hand in order to support my weight to lift myself up, so I was able to kick him down the stairs. However, this didn't seem to deter him for long, and his accomplices were quick to follow. I shouted to James, "Get to my room now!" I then got out my gun and shot the second man who was approaching. With a direct hit, he was stunned and out cold. The first man who had kicked down the stairs, and the 2 women, were now rushing to the landing. I then ran to join James in my room. I immediately slammed the door behind me. This finally woke up Sarah, who began to scream and cry. The 3 ER agents weren't armed with any guns as such, though they were with primitive crowbars. They began to bang them against the door, as well as using their weight to try and push it open. I had my back against it. Normally I'd be able to hold it for some time, though because of my virus, I was weakened, so I won't be able to hold it for very long at all. I shouted to James, "Chest of drawers, push them against the door now!" James immediately started to push the set of drawers towards the door. However, they were heavy, being made of solid wood. Plus the fact that James was only 14 made it very difficult for him. I couldn't exactly go to help him. If I let go of the door, then they would break in. Or if we swapped positions, then they would still break in a lot quicker. Even in my weakened state, I was still stronger than James was. When he was close enough that I could reach out my arms and grab the set of drawers, I helped pull as he pushed. We managed to then get them against the door. James then asked me, "What are we going to do now?" I paused for a minute. Then I realised we were in my room, which was on the front side of the house, in the centre. I told him to keep holding his weight against the drawers, to keep them in place. James did so. I then ran to the window and looked down, and, as luck would have it, I could see the slight roofed archway over the front door. This was so you could stand on the front door, and if it was raining you wouldn't get wet. Unfortunately, it wasn't directly below. It was at a slight angle. Plus it was somewhere between 7 to 8 feet drop as well. I then took a look at my gun, just to double check, and as I feared, its power cell was completely dead. The charger for it was downstairs. This confirmed to me that this was the only option. I then opened the window and unlatched the safety so that it would open wide all the way. I then rejoined James at the chest of drawers, putting my full weight on it. I then got close to James so that I could whisper in his ear again, so that our 3 attackers wouldn't be able to hear.
James, I want you to do exactly as I say, and please don't question it. I'm going to lower you out of the window, and then try and swing you over to the roof above the door. From there, I'm sorry, but you'll have to jump down from there. Try and aim from the grass. I want you to run to Tom's house. Get him to call USB or any authorities. He said, "Don't care, just get them here as soon as possible."
Hello, My room was still in darkness. I was able to make out James's face, and what I could see was utter terror in his eyes, as well as the disbelief of what I was asking him to do. After all, if he fell, then most certainly he would be badly injured, but also there was a possibility of death. I then put my hand on top of his and whispered,
"Please, I hope I can't defend off them, not in the state I'm in at the minute. Please, James."
James then went over to the window and began to climb out. I then joined him. He grabbed both of my hands so I could lower him down as far as I could. I then began to swing back and forth as best as I could. I said to him, "Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I let go of him. He wanked so far that he almost missed the roof over the doorway and wanked straight off to the other side. However, he was able to stop himself by putting his hand against the wall. This would later result in a few cuts on his hand, but thankfully nothing that wouldn't heal pretty quickly. He was then able to crouch and jump down. He then took a second to look back at me and then ran down the street. He was also in his underwear, no shoes, no socks, and just sprinted and ran to Tom's house. I then immediately went back to put my weight against the chest of drawers. One of the ER agents had finally managed to break through part of the door with their crowbar and was swinging it around inside the room trying to hit me with it. Then another was able to do the same. The two of them swinging their crowbars around. I wasn't able to dodge both of them at the same time and got hit in the shoulder, the arm and the face several times. Despite this though, I didn't move and didn't stop putting my weight against the chest of drawers so that they couldn't burst into the room. After all, it was the only thing stopping them from getting to Sarah. And while I still lived, that wasn't going to happen. This beating continued for what felt like an eternity, although in reality was somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. USP weren't able to turn up in that time, but the local authorities were. The 3 ER agents, who were still conscious, made an attempt to flee. One was captured immediately, and the other 2 tried to make it out the back garden. Unfortunately, they were greeted by some scavra, which took a bite out of one of the assailant's legs, able to rip a good chunk clean out. So they had to be rushed to hospital immediately, as well as the one that was unconscious, but the other 2 were taken into custody immediately. I was also taken to hospital. Tom came with me, as well as James. Tom was holding Sarah in his arms the entire time, trying to comfort her and hush her, to try and get her to go back to sleep, or at least to stop crying. Admittedly, I did find it slightly amusing and quite adorable actually, the ways in which Tom attempted to do this. Thankfully, the hits by the crowbar caused no serious damage. I was going to be getting some serious bruising from it, though they said that it would heal. To be honest, I'm hardly concerned. I've got more things to worry about that are much more important than that. Let's be honest, being slowly killed by a virus, I think that comes up a bit more. But you know what? Despite what I say about not wanting, to kill people, to kill those intruders, it's true I didn't want to kill them. But you know what? I was overjoyed when I found out that one of them had almost bled to death from being bitten by one of my scavra, and that she will now not be able to walk on that leg anymore. So you know what I did to the scavra that did that to her? I got him a nice juicy steak the next day, as a thank you for being a good boy. But this experience did make me realise something. ER knew where I was. They knew where I lived. And despite those people not being trained whatsoever, they were still dangerous. I thought of possibly hiring security, but then I got a letter from someone that I haven't spoken to in years. It was my brother. He had been hearing about the predicaments and that I'd been in, and was offering refuge for me and James, and presuming Sarah as well. Of course, he couldn't have known about her yet, but I decided to get in contact with him and take him up on that offer, so that me, James, and Sarah could go into hiding, able to disappear. be out of the reach of EP or anyone else who wants to come after us. Tom has also decided to come along as well. I told him that he doesn't have to drop everything and abandon his house just for my sake. Though we also argued a pretty good argument. If they're coming after me, then they'll probably come after him as well. It's only a matter of time. And he said if he had to go into hiding himself, he said he'd rather go into hiding with me and some familiar faces rather than be alone. I can't fault his logic on that. But rather than getting ships and shuttles directly to my brother's location, we're choosing to use as little space travel as possible. And actually, a good bulk of the journey we're going to do by train. So that should be an interesting experience. But from now on, I'm not going to be able to give you any details on locations. You know, keeping things secretive and all. I shouldn't have really mentioned trains, though there are far too many of them, and by the time you're listening to this, I'll have already gone on the train and be off. But yeah, it'll be interesting seeing my brother again. I mean, it's not like with my parents. Me and my brother, got on well enough, though we were never especially close. He's a couple of years younger than me, though I guess he was able to see something I wasn't, and he basically got out and left my parents before I did. With youth comes wisdom, they might say. Not always true, but maybe in circumstances that I'm in now. Who knows? But I'm definitely going to find out.